You're locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio. It's the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. I'm all about strategic communication and trying to reach your audience with a message that is going to inspire them and motivate them to take the action that you want them to take. So the question is, how do we get in front of that targeted audience, and how do we speak in ways that we can influence them? What are the strategies for getting booked on stages in front of your audience? Today's guest is really a specialist in being able to do that successfully. I'm speaking with Tiffany May. She has spent many years working with celebrated and prominent CEOs, recognizing the values and importance of impactful leadership. Tiffany works with thought leaders and strategically markets them. She successfully books speakers, coaches, authors, C-level leaders, and entrepreneurs in front of large audiences in the media and on television. That's where you want to be to reach your people, to reach your tribe, to build your following. Tiffany May is the person who can help you get there. Tiffany, welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio.
Hi, Ralph. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
I can't wait to find out more about what you do and how you do it, because I think this is a mystery for a lot of people. They kind of have an idea they want to be out there, want to put themselves out there, but they really don't know how to promote themselves and how to make those connections. So I'm anxious to learn your strategies for doing that successfully. But first, tell us a little bit about how you got started doing this. What is your story?
Well, I've always been a giver. I'm always there to help other people. And in the corporate world, I had worked with many CEOs who did speaking engagements until I got to one CEO who that's all she did was international and local speaking engagements, and learned a lot of the ins and outs of negotiating the contracts and taking care of the logistics and all of that, and just totally enjoyed it. So it was a natural movement for me to go in and start my own business recently to work with other speakers. Because when I was working with my last one, who happened to, one of the biggest highlights that we had is she actually got on the biggest stage, I think, especially here in North America, which was the Oscars.
Wow.
She was just because of her branding and her positioning and where she was. A director who was a winner was not going to be able to come, and he reached out directly to her to see if she would actually accept his, read his speech and then accept the award on his behalf in case he won, which he did.
Yeah, how about that?
So that was rather unique and very exciting to see her on that stage, and and it's taken her further and beyond. From there, I was able to work with the likes of Richard Branson's event team. He was coming into a location here in Dallas, Texas, and so I got to work with him and his team on preparing a collaborative event. To also working with, one time I had the opportunity to interview the Grand Dame of Comedy, Miss Joan Rivers, back in the day. So
wow. So you've really been around. You've really rubbed shoulders and I guess kind of working behind the scenes, like the architect of bringing people together and getting them on stage. You seem to have a natural talent for doing that. Tell us a little bit more about what exactly you do and how do you do it? How do you get these connections, and how do you get them up on stage and get them successfully booked into these different events?
Well, I think one of the key components a person needs to have, which is what I have, is my genius zone is in connections and connecting one another and building those relationships. And working behind the scenes is there's a lot of there's a lot of moving parts to it. And, the first thing is making the connection. And, being able to pitch properly and be able to meet whatever that event planners or, what the audience is looking for. So there's just a lot of movement pieces and keeping things together.
It raises an interesting question is how do we package ourselves? Is this something that people can naturally do themselves, or what is the advantage to having someone like you to promote them and package them?
Yeah, so sometimes it can take a team. For me, I'm the one who's back in the day, as working for a CEO meant that I was a project manager. So that meant that I collaborated with other parties who had their genius zones, and I pull them in. So for the packaging of the presentation, as a speaker going out there, you need to have your media collateral. Which would be like your one sheet, your a media kit, a sizzle reel, and also probably to do even a press release if you wanted to do that as well. We did that recently for someone who was an international client of mine who was flying in to launch her book and did a press release to let everyone know where she was, so we could get more inquiries from the media, especially journalists, to reach out and talk to her. So what I do is I do some of it, but I also partner with some other people who are really skilled at doing the marketing aspect of it and building the one sheets. You need a videographer, editor to help you with the sizzle reel and really capture the essence of your of your message that's going out there. So that, these are all things that you need when you're promoting yourself out there.
That's really excellent that you said that, because I think a lot of people, they just kind of don't know where to start. They just figure, I'll pick up the phone and make some calls, or they don't even know who to call. And even if they get an invitation, they don't have the collateral. They don't have the speaker sheet. They don't have the sizzle reel. They don't know how to put these things together. And it seems very overwhelming, I think, for people who don't have a team. And I think that's really one of the great advantages that you bring, is you're able to help them build this momentum behind them so that they can do whatever it is that they do, whatever their zone of genius is. And you can do what you're great at, which is packaging and presenting them in a way that is going to make what they do so much more impactful. So when you're working with people, start helping them to get on stage or to get booked, to get on television, or whatever the goal is. What would you say is the biggest problem you see when you're trying to help the people you help to get to where they want to be? What's the big obstacle that you have to overcome?
There's two ways. I take on new speakers and I take on also seasoned speakers. For a new speaker, it really is that message. Is their message clear and concise? Is it impactful? Just so I know how to really sell it to the event planner. For the seasoned ones, it's, I don't really have a hurdle with the seasoned ones. I think what it comes down to is you're having to recycle certain events. And most speakers don't go back to the same one. So you're constantly having to build, more opportunities every year. So the other thing is that is the event going to compensate you or not compensate you? And there are pros and cons. There's preferences of being paid only. There's preferences. There's other elements of getting paid other than an upfront speaker fee. So that would be another hurdle that sometimes I have to find out. So far in the internet world, they're not letting us know how much they're paying. So
yeah. And then I've seen some where you're actually paying them to come to their event and get on the stage and present. What do you think about that?
Exactly. So they call that under the guise of sponsorship. And I think if it's really targeted audience, and you can sell your services or your product, then it'll pay off in the end. But I think that's a really hard one to get into. It's because some of them, there's one guy I met where you can either pay $2,000 for just one, or if you bought several, because he would do like 12 shows a year all over the country. And the more you bought, the less it was going to cost you. But there was no guarantee of the audience size. And again, if you're, depending on what if really it depends on your targeted, is that going to be your target audience? That's what the bigger point of it is.
Yeah, that could be kind of risky to pay my way to get onto 12 events, but no guarantee of the audience size. And if you can't guarantee the audience size, how can you even guarantee that it's the kind of audience that I need to be in front of, right?
That's true. And, keep this in mind too. This is a sponsor guy that I talked to, and he says, the ones who come back and that I know, do really well, they normally don't have to pay. I mean, at the end of the day, it all pays off to build those relationships. You take a gamble, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. If it works, you might find yourself having a free ride for the rest of the events. So I'm a fan of relationships.
Yeah. So there's lots of options out there for people who want to get in front of large audiences, for selling from the stage or from just building relationships and making connections to enlarge their circle of influence. So you help people to do that. And our show has a lot of coaches, consultants, authors, speakers who listen. What can you suggest to them that would help them, I guess the word is, to be more marketable? What would make your job easier when you're trying to book them someplace? Is there something that they can be doing besides the obvious of having your collateral and so forth? But what can they begin to do to be more marketable to these venues that they want to get booked into?
That's a good question. There's a lot of ways to do that. One of the things that I encourage on my end is just be engaging on all the social media fronts that you have, and share a little bit about what you're doing. It just seems, that just seems to be a natural, organic way to build your audience and to follow. But outside of that, that would probably be my biggest one to suggest.
Is there a certain characteristic of people who do well on stage? I mean, do you ever book somebody and they just kind of flop, and you have to kind of do a post-mortem and say, what went wrong there?
Yeah.
Are some people more cut out for this than others, or what do you think?
I think so. I had one client who came on, and the director had to come on, where I was like, you need to quit. I was telling her things like, you've got to quit fidgeting. You need to bring your voice up. We need to work on this. But yeah, there are just some that I like to work with people who are really invested in themselves and who are partners in it. If you are just looking for someone to just do all the work for you, and not, just show up, talk, and move on, that's not a partnership that's going to be fruit bearing.
Yeah.
And, I think everyone's trainable as long as you want to be able to do it. I mean, we've seen we've seen all different types of speakers up there. What captivates everyone is your endearment and, just being you, and not, canned or striking a pose just because that's when you're supposed to do it, So, but, there's so many different speakers out there. I've been fortunate enough not to have anyone that I felt that would really not do well. If they're not doing well, then luckily I've got resources to improve improve the areas that are weak at that point.
And I think that anyone who wants to be a thought leader and or any kind of leader in their space, I think that they would naturally be open to learn, to improve, to get better. And it seems like the higher up someone goes in terms of the level of success, in my experience at least, the higher they are, the more humble they are, and the more willing they are to learn and to improve. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah. Yes, and I absolutely fall in love with them every time, because it just amazes me when they're at at a particular status, and you're kind of thinking, okay, we're going to get diva here, and they're nothing like that. They're just beautiful spirit. They're just beautiful people, and it's inspiring to me to see that the higher they go, the more humble that they are, and the more open they are to learning. But that's what I aspire to be, for sure.
Absolutely. So when you work with people, they probably already have some level of success going on. They probably are seasoned speakers. Even if they're new speakers, they already have some experience in something. Right. They've got some expertise in something. So they could try to do all of this on their own. But if they were to work with someone like you, what would be the great advantage, and how would you really help them improve their chances for success as opposed to just trying to figure this out by themselves?
Yeah. So the biggest thing, I think the biggest pain we all go through is time. There's never enough of it, and it's highly, highly valuable. And like I said, most speakers do not recycle places, and go back to a place. So you're always having to keep your research list alive. And that is incredibly time consuming. I could save someone 20 to 40 hours a month just by taking over the research and then cultivating the pitches and making the calls and then making the arrangements. And that's when you hire somebody like myself, that we also give them a level of credibility as well. But the biggest thing is still the time. The time is just so. It's just so, it's so much. It's like a full-time job.
Yeah, it is. And when someone if you really want to get out there, and this is part of your business, you're trying to get your message out to more people. It is not a situation where if you just put it up on a billboard, for example, everybody's just going to call you and they're going to show up and it's just going to be great. And I think a lot of this online marketing hype has given people a false sense of what it takes to really succeed. And it does take someone actually working full time to promote. Nothing that we see on television, on the radio, on podcasts, nothing happens by accident. Very little happens just by chance. Everything has to be orchestrated. It has to be planned. It has to be promoted, and somebody has to do it. If you're not going to do it for yourself, then you have to hire and you have to have a team of people who are dedicated to doing this for you. It's just not going to be a case where you're so famous that the phone just rings off the hook, even for famous people.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's just so many moving parts to all of this. And it'd be great if everyone were coming to you. And I kind of had a taste of that, because if you are already, it seems like once you're in the circuit, it's just getting you into that circuit that people will start kind of reaching out and following up.
I guess we could sum up what we're saying, that success in this industry and in any business or any industry is not by accident. It's not by chance.
No,
someone has to make those connections. And maybe you do get to a place once you're in that circuit. And I certainly teach people the power of referrals and testimonials and making connections and relationships. But unless you are like a true celebrity status, top 10, top 20 celebrities, you are going to have to make an investment of time and money, either to do it yourself or to have an expert like you to do it. I think this is a reality check, and it's also a gut check. Is this really what you want to do? Do you really have what it takes to put yourself out there? Are you confident enough in your message that you can put it out there and have the resilience and the fortitude to keep working at it and not to give up and not to expect. Also, I think it's correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's also realistic not to expect overnight success.
Yeah, that's just does not happen. And I think we all know that at the end of the day, that, it takes hard work to get where any of us are, where we are now. So yeah, that you need to have lower your expectations on getting the quick fills, getting those quick invites. They're going to take some time. When you're planning on booking, you want to get involved. Let's say you want to start your research now. Keep in mind that most event planners, producers, whatnot, plan 6 to 12 months in advance, or even a year and a half in advance. So if you're looking to speak next week, that would be dumb luck if you got one.
And it probably wouldn't be a very great opportunity if you could get booked that fast, right?
Yeah, because you really do need to take the time in the very beginning of really, defining who your audience is, where you want to speak. Is your message going to match the audience that you're searching for, to make sure that, everything is aligned. And then when you start looking at things, you get aligned with that, and then you start searching. And I've got, I don't know if it's okay to share this with you, but I've got a little master class that I offer for everyone to check in, because it has truly 30 minutes worth of nuggets on how to get your search started.
Oh, okay.
And we talk about making sure you have a clear and concise message. We talk about how to build, I call it the dream list. It's like the Dream 100. Where you go in and you identify. Like, I have one client who is, he's already a speaker. He's been doing it for a while, but we just need to refresh that research list. And one of the things that an easy thing that you can do is, and I'm just going to take a popular name here. Let's say that you have you speak about the same things that Brene Brown does. Then you could, what you could do is go look at where she has spoken for the past 5 years, take that list, and then start working out that way to see if you can, because at least part of your pitch is if you really liked her, you're going to like me type of pitch in there.
Yeah. And we see that with authors all the time. You'll see a book from an unknown author, and it will be promoted as written in the style of John Grisham or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that illustrates exactly the strategy you're talking about here for speakers. Right.
Yeah, it's just like when I want to go buy my Advil PM and I find the generic one. It's just like.
So tell us a little bit more about that blueprint that you offer to people, and how can they take advantage of that?
Oh, sure. So I offer a 30-minute little blueprint strategy. Promise you no sales, because I'm just not a sales girl. But we'll talk. We'll figure out where you're at and where you can go, and I'll give you a strategy idea to kind of get you started. Or if you decide you want to go further with me, obviously we'll talk a little bit longer about it. But yeah, it's really easy to reach me. You can always just book it when you go to www.bookwithtiffanyMay.com. You can book there, or if you would like to get the strategy or the masterclass, which I promise is not a boring 40-minute webinar, but a quick 30-minute full of nuggets, that's at www.getonsstagenow.com. And
wow.
If you sign up with that, you get a few goodies. I have a list in there, like the top 25 local, or not local, but U.S.-based events that are always looking for speakers. So it's just a good starting tool.
Well, there you go. And that's a fantastic domain name. GetOnStageNow.com. I mean, wow. Exactly. You've got that branded. You could take that nationwide, international. And I could see that, it's like a 1-800 Get On Stage Now. I mean, it's just that's a super domain name, easy to remember, and love it. So I will have that on our website, getonstagenow.com or bookwithtiffanyMay.com. for our listeners who want to learn more. Tiffany, this has really been eye-opening, and I appreciate you sharing your insider secrets and your wisdom with us. Any final thoughts that you would like to leave us with?
Well, no, yes and no. I, if anyone is more like, hey, I want to do this on my own, connect with me. I've got a little course that's going to start in a couple of weeks that might be beneficial to you. And also, I'll just leave it with this. I'm a huge Annie May fan, and she has this one quote about you got to live, live, live. Life is a banquet. Most poor suckers are out there starving to death. So don't overlook your value. Someone needs to hear your message today.
I love that. What a great quote. And thank you so much, Tiffany May, for being on the show today. That actually has a ring to it. I heard that in my head before I said it. Tiffany May is an experienced person who is working with prominent CEOs, thought leaders, to create impactful leadership and to strategically market them. She books speakers, coaches, authors, C-level leaders, and entrepreneurs in front of large audiences in the media and on television. So if that is you, or if you suspect it could be you potentially, go check that out at bookwithtiffanyMay.com or getonstage.now.com. Tiffany, it's been a real pleasure to get to know you. Thanks so much for being on Rebelpreneur Radio today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed this.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at rebelpreneur.com.